Hi everyone! Today we will be sewing Vesper swimsuit pattern. If you still don't have it, it's available on our online store at bikinidesignclub.com. I'm not going to tell you about the supplies that we need, but you have a special video just for that, talking about supplies and what supplies I usually use for my sewing. In this case, on the pattern, it is mentioned that the halter top can be finished with a clasp or with a tie. So if you want to end with a clasp, you have to buy a clasp. 3 centimeters, it's what I have here. But if more or less one quarter inch. If you want to tie a knot or a bow, you don't need this today. So let's start cutting our fabric. This is a non-reversible pattern, so we will start cutting this one as our main fabric, and I'm gonna use this one that's my lining piece today. So let's start cutting the fabric. I turned my fabric, so don't be mistaken, I'm still using the selvage as a reference for my grain line, but I just turned the fabric so it's easier for me to cut on the table. So you can rotate your fabric according to what you want, but never forget grain line parallel to selvage. So I have cut in my pieces. I now have my outer fabric and my lining for the front, 2 for the back because of the center back seam, 2 of the lining for the back, 2 for the front, 1 outer, 1 lining, and our 2 straps with the correspondent lining pieces. Now let's start assembling what we need to do. First we need to combine the darts for both fabrics, pin them and sew them using the straight stitch machine. Then we can also pin the center back seam on both fabrics and sew that area. So let's start by doing that. So instead of my videos getting shorter by the time my videos are getting longer. And why? Because I want to explain all the details of what I'm doing. I think you deserve to know why I'm doing on a certain method and not the other. So that's why I'm always talking and telling you what I'm doing. So the videos are a bit longer, but I think it's better for you. So now I'm gonna face right sides facing together. So make sure that you choose the same texture that you chose for the front, because despite this is a plain fabric, you can see differences on the 2 sides. So choose the outside and keep consistent for all the pieces, okay? Then for the pinning, I usually, without stressing the fabric, I put my 2 fingers on the table and then I place my pin, and this is how I pin all my fabrics. Another detail is when I'm pinning the fabrics, usually, in this case, this is a non-reversible, so it's fine. But on the reversibles, I always pin with my main fabric facing up on my table, so I never forget to apply the elastic on that side. In this case, this is a non-reversible swimsuit, so we will not need to worry about that. And while I was talking, I already pinned my center back and both my darts. So let's start sewing them, and then we'll be back. So this is how I do my darts every time. This is a slight curve, so I do the curve parallel half a centimeter, and then when I get to the near to the fold of the fabric, I do 5 more stitches straight ahead, very near the edge. And then instead of going back, I leave my threads, so now I just need to tie 2 knots and my dart is ready. This will make a much better finish of the dart point once the fabric is on the right side, okay? And I need to do the same for all my darts, for the main fabric and also for my lining. A small detail I want to share. I don't have cones in every color of the fabrics that I own. So this means that I have to choose white or black, and that's it. So this means that once this is on the right side, often what will happen is that you will see the color of the stitches. So if you want to, and if it happens the same to you and you don't have the cones with the correct color for your fabric, what I do is, now that I have this in black, I go to my straight stitch machine using the correct color of the thread. And I go over with an elastic stitch. I go over again the entire seam, going a little bit out of my black line. So this will make sure that once this is on the correct side, you will not see the black, you will only see the other one. So I'm gonna do that now. So as you can see, we now do not see the black threads anymore. So of course you can choose not to do this, but well, this is how I do it, so I wanted to share. Our lining is done because we didn't do the threads for the knots, so it's done. The main fabric, we just remove the pins, and what we do, as I explained, we tie 2 knots on each dart point, and we cut the excess threads, and our darts are ready. 1, very tight, 2, and now cut. And do the same on the other one, and we will be ready. Now we will combine our front piece with the 2 straps, and we will do the same for the lining, but okay, then you see the right side again, and you match. You see that this is like a continuous line like that, so you just fold and pin, and we will do the same exact process for the lining. So we put this, I'm gonna put it, you grab your front and your back, you align the sides, start with the top sides, pin, this fabric is so slippery, but okay. So here, but I love the color, this coral color. I love it. It's one of my favorites. But this time I also made some tutorials using blue and using purple, and I also loved those colors too. Let me know what you think about the colors, and what do you think, which are your favorite colors. Do comment, send us messages. We want to know your favorite colors for your swimwear. So sides pinned, let's sew the sides here, and let's repeat what we pinned here for our lining, and after we go to our sewing machine. Again, I went to my straight stitch machine, and with an elastic stitch I sewed again on all areas so that we will not see the black threads once this is on our body. And now I'm placing with the correct sides to the outside, and then we have our bottom, not connected yet, but it's here, and it will be like this, right? So what do we need to do? We need to pin the front. So imagine this was like this, right? So we fold it, and we will pin the front with front. So you see that this seam is here on the edge, and I can pin there, and the other seam is on the other edge, so here, and I can pin here. Okay, then of course you can pin the entire front. Now we also want to attach this part that is going a little bit to the back. We also want to fold it and pin it here, and do the same here, right? Okay, so just carefully place flat on the table and pin. Do the same on the other sides, and then do the same exact process on your lining. And then we will sew this area that we have just pinned. We will go to our overlock and sew all this area. And if we feel ready, we can also already attach the crotch area. So it will be like this, right? So you have to do like this and then turn right sides together, remember? So be careful not to twist what you're doing, but right sides facing together. You can check once you have pins if you have pinned correctly. Okay, it's good. So this is ready to go. And now I just do the same here, and we go to our sewing machine. Now you will see me pulling the elastic while I sew, and you will see me with one hand grabbing the elastic and with the other hand controlling the fabric. I never pull the fabric, I only pull the elastic. And when I pull, I need to make sure that my needles, when I start pulling, that my needles are down, okay, and my elastic is already attached to my fabric. We cut more or less 1 or 2 millimeters always from our fabric. So this makes the tension of the threads always perfect. And now, so let's start sewing. Now I'm going to sew the neckline. So my procedure will be using my overlock. When I'm near the V-shape center, I stop. I don't cut elastic, I go to my straight stitch machine, I continue my stitch there, that's where I do the V-shape, and then I come back here and I will tape everything so that you can follow me and try to do it if you want to do it the same way. Now I'm near my center neckline, so I'm gonna stop. How? I'm just gonna move my fabric and my elastic away from the machine. I'm going straight ahead, and without cutting the elastic, I'm gonna move this to my straight stitch. Here we are. So I'm gonna place the fabric again here with my elastic. I'm gonna face it here, straight ahead. I'm gonna start sewing a little bit over the overlock thread, and then I'm gonna cut my elastic here, like vertically, more or less. Now grab the elastic and just use the elastic stitch and go. Now that we are on the edge, exactly on the edge of our cleavage neckline, I don't know how you should say it, I turn my fabric, I grab my elastic again, and I use the same angle which I've just cut. I place the elastic again, down with my foot, and continue sewing. So what we have here now is our V-shape ready. Since I'm never happy with only one go, I'm gonna do it again with the same stitch. I'm gonna go over again sewing this area so that I'm sure that it is reinforced. And then we will just grab this and continue our neckline on our overlock. So back to the overlock. Just align the fabric again, and we just are going to continue what we were doing. So just align your fabric more or less with your elastic and start sewing. Don't forget the tension on the elastic, and that's it. Let's go. So what I did here is, with my needles down, I just put it up a little bit my foot, and I tilted the elastic outwards so that it stops sewing elastic. And then I'm gonna sew the rest of the strap without elastic, because I will apply a clasp and I don't want this to be too bulky. So again, I went to my straight stitch machine with an elastic stitch and stitched here so that we cannot see the black threads. So our piece is almost ready. It's missing the almost. More half an hour at least. Okay, so now we have both our pieces, and now we want this side to be facing our body, so we will want this facing us, so we will reverse this like this. Okay, and we will insert this inside our main fabric. So we will insert the lining inside our main fabric. I aligned the crotch first, and I just put a clip here so that I can align the rest. I will come back here later, so just align roughly for now, but then of course we will do it in detail. So roughly put your seam more or less here, and this one also. Now comes the interesting part. I don't know how many of you tell me that it's hard for you to do non-reversibles, but I also started with the reversibles, and I understand what you mean. But I mean, once you try on one of these that is non-reversible, you will see that they fit so well and they dry so fast on the beach. You will for sure love them, like I do now. So then I also do a small, I secure this area. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to combine the two pieces together, and to combine them we will place elastic, and we want to place our elastic on top of our lining, because when we fold to do the final finish, we don't want to see the elastic. So we will need to reverse the entire suit, okay, like this, with the lining facing outside, because we will place the elastic on this side, so it's facing us. And now we need to align the entire piece, pin and sew. I'm going to do it by pieces. First the cleavage, then maybe the leg holes, align very well the seams. Sometimes I do a hand stitch to make sure that they are exactly where I want them to be. So this is up to you if you want to go to the detail of hand stitching like I do, but I'm gonna do it. So let's start pinning and aligning our fabrics. I tend to apply the same rule on every seam. I lean both of the seams backwards all the time. So on the crotch area, on the leg holes, on the hip area, everywhere where we have seams, I lean them, both of them, to the same sides, and both of them back to your back piece. And this helps me when I want to make sure that my seams are aligned on top and on the bottom, to make sure that I always remember, because I always apply the same rule. So I lean them back. This is optional, of course. Now when I'm sewing by hand, what I'm doing now, I always sew near the edge. So when I'm sewing with my overlock, this will completely disappear, so I don't even mind using white. Okay, I did the neckline, and now I'm doing one of the leg holes, and then I think it will be enough. I'm going to the sewing machine, because otherwise it will be too many pins for me flying around, and I don't need them stitching me and pinning me. Okay, so I'm going to the sewing machine now. Oh no, half is not done. So after I do this, I'm going to the sewing machine and overlock, placing the elastic on top of your lining, And again, if you want to apply some tension on your elastic, you can. This will depend on the fabric that you used, and the tension is, I mean, I do it by intuition, so I pull a little bit my elastic to make sure that it has tension. Sometimes it's good, sometimes I did a little bit less than I should, well, but of course that's not like a mathematical thing that you can do like a machine. There are some foot, elastic foots that you can apply to your machine, and I have one, but I don't use it because I prefer feeling the elastic going to the machine instead of starting already with elastic, and also because there are certain areas where I don't want to have elastic. For instance, I want to control on my cleavage, this is a V-neck, right, V here, and to make this sharp, you know that since the beginning I start sewing and I start doing the videos, I always show you how I do this, and despite I cut the elastic in this area, we have elastic all around the neckline, and if I use my elastic foot, I wouldn't be able to control this as much as I want, so I never use the elastic foot. I always feel it by hands. So let's go and start sewing what we have pinned so far. So we are back from our overlock, and I'm gonna just give a little detail here on the V-shape front, so that I think it will be nicer once we reverse this. We are not gonna reverse, this is non-reversible. Hello? Sorry. I'm gonna just give it a little touch here. I'm not gonna even edit this because yeah, I'm not gonna edit, I'm gonna leave it like this. So what am I gonna do here so that this is nice when we fold and we stitch? I'm gonna trim the edges here, this and this, and that's it. I'm not gonna do anything else, okay? Then when we fold the fabric and when we are sewing, we will just go on our sewing machine and fold, so it's fine. So we have done all this. Now we need to do the other leg hole and all the back. So pin everything again and pin the leg hole, and let's go again. Just one detail, I didn't need to go to my stitch machine to do with the red, the coral line, because since we are gonna fold this inside, I don't need to hide any stitches, so I don't need to sew over to make it non-visible like we did on the seams. So let's pin. So I'm not gonna tape me doing this all over again and fast forward, because I think it's stupid, you lose your time. But I'm gonna stop every time I think something is important. So regarding the back, when you are sewing the dart area, what I do is I open and flatten my darts on both fabrics, so my lining and my outer fabric. I flatten the fabric, both of them. I put them like this together, and I make sure that they stay flat when I'm sewing. So I pin both of the flaps, let's say, I don't know the name, and then I always do some stitches by hand to make sure, because my needle is not going to my overlock, so I will have to remove it. And since I want to make sure that this stays exactly flattened, I'm going to give some stitches to secure the dart area. So this is optional, you can just go ahead and do it and never mind if this is towards one of the sides. But I'm trying to tell you how I think it's the best way and how to get the best result possible, okay? And again, I'm just an amateur, so if you know another way to do it, and there are other ways to do it, or if this is not the correct way, like technically speaking, well, that's how I know how to do it. I never learned sewing in any school. This is not what I've studied at all. So this is just by intuition and what I've learned so far, and I'm just sharing, so you do as you prefer if you want to. Then when you reach to this sewing seam here, this is the the waist seam, we will align, okay, and we will sew all this, right? So you need to decide either if you are going to put your seam up or your seam down. I put my seam up. So what I do again is I put both of them up, and again I hand stitch. So this is secure once it goes on the overlock, and it stays exactly where I want it to be. And that's it. I'm gonna pin, I'm gonna go to the overlock, sew, and I'll be back. Do the same. Do not waste your time watching me sewing. Just to show you the detail. Okay, so hand stitched again, and the flattened dart. Ta-da! All our swimsuit is done on the overlock. Something just to let you know that I went back and did it again because I had interrupted this area with for the thong without elastic, but I don't think we should, so I went back and I added the elastic. So do the elastic all around the leg hole, okay? So now what we need to do is do our finish. You have many options now because you can choose to use a thread of the same color of the fabric, you can use contrast, you can do so many options. You can even do, imagine this in red and this in pink, and then use threads combining, so you can do lots of things with this pattern. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use a thread with the same color. It's actually a very thick thread because I want to try it. I've never used it before and I want to try it, and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch. What I do is I go to my straight stitch machine, I fold my fabric like this, and I do the zigzag stitch all around everywhere. So, and then it will be more or less almost ready. Another thing that we can do if we want to is on our waist seam, if we want to accentuate the seam, we can do a zigzag stitch all around on the waist here, folding the seam to the same side from the lining and the outside fabric and doing a zigzag. It's interesting and the result would be nice, so maybe I will do it. First, I'm gonna take some pictures without the zigzag, and then I'm gonna try the zigzag and also take some pictures, so that way you will be able to preview both options and you can decide which one you like the most. So now I'm gonna start folding the fabric and doing the zigzag all around. Let's do it. So this is the thread that I'm thinking on using. It's thicker than usual. If we compare to the other one, we can see that it's different. I'm gonna try and sew with this one. Let's see if my machine likes it. For my zigzag stitch, I have my machine configured. Let me show you here. I have my machine with my stitch 3 and 2. 3 for the width and 2 for the length. And this is the zigzag I'm gonna do. You will see me giving some tension on my fabric because remember that we gave some tension on the elastic. You can see it here. So now I also need to, while I'm going and helping the fabric to go, I also need to fold and give a little bit of tension so that it will maintain the elasticity and the tension that I gave before. So it's just give it tension until the fabric is not rippled like this, okay? Getting to the V-shape area in front, I'm going until the V area, and then I stop and I turn my fabric and I continue. So I'm back. I've already did the zigzag and I gave you some details on how I do it. My machine went nuts in this strap, but okay. So now let me see, I have this, I want to put a clasp here, so I have this, it's 3 centimeters, so I think this is good. Let me just try the 2.5, 2, I think this is 2. I think I prefer this one, the smaller. So I'm gonna, yeah, it's 2 centimeters. So before I sew the clasp, what I do is, because you can also tie this in a knot, of course you have to finish this ending here, so you need to fold and sew over. But since I'm gonna use a clasp, I'm just gonna cut a little bit here, the excess. And this, I think this is the best way for you to finish this swimsuit. So now I do like this. I can pin to try it on before I consider this like the final size. So I can adapt this to me or to a customer. So I just do this, I fold. I know that the 3 centimeter would not create this gapping here, but I prefer the 2 centimeter in this case, okay? It's just a choice that you make. Now I'm gonna try it on. I'm gonna take some pictures so that you can see, and then I'm still going to do, probably I'm gonna do the zigzag here and take more pictures so that you can choose if you want to do the zigzag or not. So I'm not gonna do the zigzag because I think if we want to do it, we have to do it before, or we will not be sure if one seam is one side and the other is one up, one down, and it will not be nice once it's done. What I would do is, before sewing them around here, I would have done the waist with both of them leaning up, and then I would do the zigzag on the upper part of the top, but I think that's my preference. I think it turned out pretty nice. I sewed the clasp with some stitches here, and now I just need to cut the excess fabric inside, and our piece is ready. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. See you next time. Bye!